So a good example of how to do a review of your nuclear security posture within an organization, nuclear security culture within an organization, is using a worksheet like this. Simple worksheets like this have been used before by organizations like the World Institute for Nuclear Security and as well for the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And in it, what it does is we look at the 28 characteristics that we looked at earlier from the Edgar Schein model, and we do a self-assessment. An organization can go through and do a self-assessment of those characteristics. One of the best ways to do that is to take this worksheet and to give it out to a series of different individuals within an organization and allow them to independently rank where that organization lies in each of those 28 characteristics, and then to bring together all of those rankings and get an average out of them, and then look at those rankings. And so in that, you might have, for instance, various characteristics like the use of authority, and you might have certain questions or areas you might ask somebody about that characteristic, like, for instance, do designated managers demonstrate good knowledge of what is expected of them? Do they recognize and take charge of all adverse security situations or situations in which vulnerability is heightened? That says something about their use of authority when they do that. And then you'd have the individual rank that. Do they totally agree, totally disagree? Usually, let's say, on a 1 to 10 scale. And then go through and do that over and over until you come up with an average value for the use of authority for that particular organization. And by putting all those together, then we can look at how the facility ranks in these are the 28 different characteristics, how they might rank from 1 to 10. In this particular example, it was done on one side for the specifically security-related staff, and then on another side on the non-security-related staff. And the difference between the value system that you see between those two organizations can tell you something about what's going on in your facility. And in this particular case, what we're really looking for is probably weak points, areas in which we have low values, and then areas in which we have fairly large differences between the security staff and the non-security staff. So for some of these, you might see, for instance, effective communication on this particular slide is actually ranked relatively low by the non-security staff, even though the security staff ranks it as being reasonably good. And so obviously there's a difference in perception between the effectiveness of communication between the non-security personnel within a facility and the security personnel. The security personnel think they're doing a good job on that. The non-security personnel don't feel like there's good communication. They may feel like we don't know what's going on within a facility. That tells you something about an area that maybe you need to focus on to try and develop a better culture there. And those are areas in which we could then come up with particular actions that we might be able to use to be able to develop additional value systems.